Disneyland is known worldwide as being the happiest place on Earth. But for some unfortunate people, Disneyland was the exact opposite. In this video we will be hearing 10 stories of horrifying deaths that had taken place at Disney parks. Number 1. Skyway. In 1999, 65-year-old Raymond Barlow was working as a custodian at Walt Disney World. He was sweeping the platform of the Skyway at Fantasyland. It was 10 minutes before the park was to be opened and the cast member in charge of turning the ride on was unaware that Raymond was on the platform. The Skyway was switched on and one of the gondolas started moving towards Raymond. Raymond quickly clung onto the gondola and tried to pull himself into it. However, he found himself unable to do so, and his last resort was to try to safely drop to the ground. Not wanting to fall onto the concrete, Raymond decided to let go of the gondola when it was above the flower bed and plunged 40 feet to his death. Number 2. Alligator. On June 16, 2016, 2-year-old Lane Graves was on a holiday with his family at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa. He was at the man-made Seven Seas Lagoon making sandcastles with other children. As Lane was filling up his bucket with water from the lagoon, an alligator grabbed the young boy and took him into the water. Lane's father tried to pry the alligator's jaws open to free his child, but he was unsuccessful. Sadly, Lane had drowned, and his body was recovered 16 hours after the attack. Number 3. Grad Night. In 1966, Disney held their annual Grad Night. 19-year-old Thomas Cleveland wanted to sneak into the park to join the event for free. He climbed a 16-foot-high outer fence that led up to the monorail track. He planned on climbing back down when he got to the other side. A security guard saw Thomas on the fence and warned him that there was a monorail approaching. Thomas ignored him and jumped down onto the monorail track. The monorail struck and killed Thomas, dragging his body 30 feet before stopping. Number 4. Tom Sawyer. In 1973, two brothers aged 18 and 10, thought it would be fun to hide at Tom Sawyer's Island after the Disney park had closed. After a few hours they decided they wanted to leave but didn't want to call attention to the park's cast members fearing of getting into trouble. The 10-year-old boy was unable to swim, so his older brother carried the young boy on his back and attempted to swim across the rivers of America. They only got halfway across before the older boy disappeared beneath the water. The younger boy had to doggy paddle his way through the water until a ride operator helped him onto a boat. His older brother's body was found the next morning. Number 5. Pluto. On February 11, 2004, a 38-year-old Disney cast member who was dressed as Pluto was run over and killed by a Beauty and the Beast float. The accident took place during the Share a Dream Come True parade at Disney's Magic Kingdom in Florida. The cast member had been working at Walt Disney World for 8 years. Number 6. Space Mountain. In 1979, a woman named Cheryl Ann Hoffman and her family boarded the Space Mountain ride. During the ride, Cheryl became ill, and when her rocket came back to the station, cast members tried to help Cheryl out of the rocket. They found it difficult to do so and they tried to signal to the ride operator to remove the rocket from the tracks. The ride operator had misunderstood the signals and instead sent Cheryl's rocket through the 3-minute ride once again. When Cheryl's rocket came back to the station a second time, she was unconscious and sent to the hospital where she fell into a coma and died 7 days later. It was believed that the speed of the ride caused a tumor in her heart to dislodge, sending fragments of it through the bloodstream and into Cheryl's brain. Number 7. America Sings. In 1974, 18-year-old Deborah Gale Stone was killed at the America Sings attraction. The attraction had only been open for 9 days before the fateful incident. The way the attraction worked was there was an outer ring where the audience sat and viewed the show. This outer ring moved around a stationary center that housed multiple stages. The outer ring will stop at each stage and a scene will be performed for the audience members to enjoy. Once the scene was finished, the audience members will be rotated to see the next scene on the next stage of the carousel. Deborah's job was to greet the guests as they came in and welcome them through the microphone as they were rotated into the first scene. Deborah stood too closely to the rotating wall and the stationary wall, crushing her to death. Number 8. Celebration. This next one didn't particularly take place at a Disney park, but it is still Disney related and pretty scary. Celebration was built by the Walt Disney Company and is located on the outskirts of Disney World in Central Florida. It was intended to be an idyllic dream town, like the ones you see in a typical Disney movie. But this charming little town contains something very deadly. If you accidentally took a wrong turn, you could easily meet your demise in a pond. In 1998, 3 men who were in Florida on vacation ended up driving into the water. They were missing for 9 months before their bodies were recovered. There are now lights and barricades that will stop drivers from making the same fateful mistake. Number 9. People Mover. A 17-year-old boy from California named Ricky Liyama was killed when he exited his People Mover car and jumped from car to car as the People Mover was going through the tunnels. Ricky had slipped as he was doing this and was crushed to death by an oncoming People Mover car. A similar incident happened 13 years later when Gerardo Gonzalez was hopping from car to car whilst the People Mover was going through the superspeed tunnel. He had fallen onto the tracks and was crushed to death by a train of cars. His body was dragged for 40 feet before the ride was stopped. Number 10. Dollys Dip. On January 3, 1984, a 48-year-old woman named Dolly Regina Young was riding a Matterhorn bobsled's car when she was suddenly thrown from it and landed on the tracks. Unfortunately, she was struck and killed by the next bobsled car. Dolly was sitting in the very last seat of the bobsled, and it is unknown to anyone else riding in the same car if she had deliberately taken her seatbelt off or if it was not correctly fastened before the ride began. The ride is said to be haunted by Dolly. Especially one area in particular, a sharp descent of the tracks which is now known to be as Dollys Dip. If you liked this video, be sure to follow us on Instagram and subscribe to the channel.